Welcome to basically recording a radio show from home 101. This is what I hope to be the first step in what will also end up being the way that we go live from home, which is totally possible. And is something I'm working with both WREV and WBTV to be able to do before, hopefully before Thanksgiving, because I don't see an end in sight for COVID, at least for the wintertime here in Vermont, anytime soon. So tonight I gave everybody some pre-homework that I'm hoping folks are able to do about recording some audio encoding software, which is just a fancy way of saying audio programs that record everything off of your computer, all the audio feeds that you're going to tell it to record. And there's a couple different versions of that, whether it's if you have a PC or if you have a Mac. For the purposes of my teaching, I have only a Mac here at home. So I was able to kind of mostly kind of prepare myself like mentally about like what a PC user will use. But as we go deeper into PC questions, there'll be like a point where I won't be able to answer that many questions, but we'll kind of make do as we go here. And for the most part, the programs that I suggested are really simple, easy to use. And again, I'm a hat tip to ArtxFM in Louisville, Kentucky, who I'm riffing off of this, a lot of this content, because they figured this all out well before us. And I think it's a pretty simple process. So for tonight, again, as we go along here, if there are questions or if I'm going too fast or something, feel free to, jump on your mic and like, let me know. But my goal here is to kind of walk us through the most basic way to record, and then the second way to record, which is kind of what I do, where I've got a little bit more of my audio gear set up. And you'll see the second camera here, and how I would use a mixer to give myself basically more audio ports, if that makes sense. But before I begin, I figured I would just give everybody a chance to, just as a quick, since we don't get to see each other anymore, introduce yourselves. I know that we've got two other DJs on the call here so far, and as other folks come in, I'll have them introduce themselves, but I think it's a great opportunity to do a quick community builder of like who else is here, and especially for the community members who aren't necessarily able to get into the studio and do recordings like the students are. So Susan or Milo, do you want to go first? Just introduce yourself and how long you've been doing radio, and anything else you want folks to know.
Want to go first, Milo?
Sure. Milo Grant here, and I've been involved with RUV since the summer of '84. My gosh, going way back. And this has probably been the longest amount of time since I started that I haven't had a show going on RUV. So I'm pretty excited to get this process down, and hopefully, especially since we're going to go into a much longer break, maybe try to produce like 2 shows a week so that we just have as much programming that's an actual show as opposed to just automation as we can to, I don't know, that kind of sound like back to normal, quote unquote, even though it won't be for a while. And that's it.
Great. Thanks, Milo.
I'm Susan DeLeon. I go by Mama Lion. I had a show on RUV back in the late 90s. I'm not even sure when it was, but it's like 96 maybe to 2001. And it's always been reggae. And it used to be live, and now it's not. Now I use Audacity for here and for BTV.
Awesome.
I came on BTV in this winter.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Mila and I are both longtime members of both stations, and from BTV. I mean, that's not saying much as it's only been a couple years old, but yeah, it's great to have great content from both of you going out at both stations. It's all of this is labor of love, right? So
absolutely.
And more important than ever, I feel like, radio is like one of those things that is just like, it's a steady thing that no matter where people are hiding from this virus, we can still be reaching people in a, connective way.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
And plus it's getting ready. It's going to be a long winter.
I know.
Oh, God, tell me about it.
All right, y'all. So here's, I'm going to jump right into it here. So the basic setup for home recording goes as follows. So you download and you have your software set up. So if you're on a Mac, I'm recommending Audio Hijack, which unfortunately does have a $60 one-time licensing fee for you in order to record literally as many hours as you want. And then the PC version of that is called Rocket Broadcaster. It's a different program, but it does exactly the same thing. And what these two programs allow you to do in a very simple way is you install them. And once we open them, you're able to record any and all audio that's happening on your computer. So on your laptop or your desktop, whatever it is. And it's really the truly easiest way for if you've got zero audio gear at home, you literally can pull this off by having one of these two programs, plugging in a pair of headphones like I've got on right now that has an onboard mic. So that's true for most fancy headphones that are not even fancy. Most headphones have a mic attached to them at this point, but also earbuds also have a mic. So that's, not broadcast quality mic, not something fancy like my Yeti here, but it would be enough for you to be able to hear and also speak. And it also out of the gate does away with any issues of a looping, like a feedback that people often get when they're trying to use any recording program and are doing it without having headphones on, and they're trying to like have a mic somewhere else. Like usually that is like the number one reason that people get feedback. So that's just a good thing to know out of the gate. Generally, anytime I do get feedback, I always try to plug headphones in, and 95% of the time it solves the problem. So once you have one of these two programs downloaded, and again, depending on your format or the type of computer that you have, really the next step that you have is set up your show like you usually would. We are long enough in our digital age here that what I would recommend is that, again, most simple version here is you use Spotify, or you create a YouTube playlist, or maybe you're using your iTunes, whatever your on computer music sources, just kind of get it set up. And so I'll show you as an example here. Let me share my screen. So each week, I actually use a couple different sources to do my show. I'm building a Spotify playlist where I'm pulling a couple of, like, probably a third or maybe sometimes a half of my show comes from Spotify. Another half of my show is coming directly from iTunes because I'm getting a lot of the downloads from all of our record labels. And I'm building that into an iTunes playlist. And so I would pull up my iTunes as well. And sometimes, depending on what's going on, if I can't find it anywhere else, I'm also sometimes playing off of YouTube or other sources on the internet. And again, either of these two programs are basically going to be listening to your computer in a Big Brother kind of way, and it would play that feed. So what you're end up doing is, instead of manipulating multiple pieces of gear in the studio, like a CD player over here, record player over there, maybe your iPhone over here, you're basically just toggling back and forth between screens on your computer, playing an audio source. Now, there's a finesse to this. There's a little bit of a learning curve where you're going to want to make sure that you've turned off all notifications on your computer. So if you have a pinging phone that's synced to your computer, you want to make sure that's desynced, so that's somebody doesn't call you in the middle of your show and it shows up on your computer. Or if you've got email alerts or something like that, or sometimes, none of these are auto stop, which is a thing to acknowledge here. So if I just started playing my, music here, it's just going to run through this entire playlist. So I need to, if I want to, again, truly create a live show experience, and I want to play Resistance Revival chorus first, but then I'm going to toggle over to my iTunes, I need to be watching and, hitting play and pause here. And some of these programs are designed to just kind of like bleed right into the next one, right? There's a transition point of 2 or 3 seconds. So I just want to kind of flag, much like that hot tip of cut your potential of a feedback loop with headphones on. Here's your second hot tip. Make sure that you are just kind of like aware of your playlist order that you want, and you're really on it at the end of each song to stop or start the next one. Now, it's going to feel a little bit like you're a rookie no matter what, but that's a thing to kind of pay attention to. Of course, your first show out of the gate or second show out of the gate, you could build your entire playlist within your iTunes or your YouTube or your Spotify and just let it rip, and then, talk only every 5 or 6 songs how you otherwise would have, just so you can kind of get the hang of it. But that's really the easiest way to create your audio sources, again, on your computer, on your laptop, without needing anything else plugged into your computer. Like I'm just talking about doing this whole thing via your computer for this most basic version. So how would that go? How would what would that look like? Again, I'm going to show you the PC version, and then we're going to kind of pretend like I'm showing you the Rocket Broadcaster version, because I can't, Rocket Broadcaster only works with a PC. So what I would do next is I would open up the program for Audio Hijack. And of course it needs an update. Hold on. The great thing about audio, hang on a second here, we might have some Zoom issues. I'll stop sharing my screen here while we're doing these. Both these two programs, besides recording just kind of like for yourself, eventually for a radio show, is that there's also a second function for both these programs that can sync up to a live feed where you would kick it to each or any of the radio stations that you'd want to go be able to trip live to. So again, this is why my hope is that this workshop is part 1 of 2 that would eventually get people broadcasting live. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second here. So here we go with Audio Hijack. So I'm ready to do my show. I've got my playlist all set. I've got my headphones on and my mic is ready. I can hear myself, etc. I've opened up Audio Hijack. And what Audio Hijack does, and also Rocket Broadcaster, is it says, okay, tell me what you want to record. And in Audio Hijack, it has a nice little kind of layout here where you can say, you can kind of literally build the blocks of what you're having it record. So I can drag these things around. So I'm saying, okay, the source is the first thing in the line of little boxes of feed here. I'm saying I want it to record everything in my system audio. Now I could be more specific if I really wanted to, but again, the goal here is I want you guys to see it as simply as possible. So here is system audio. So again, warning, warning, it'll play everything, notifications, your Spotify, whatever it is. The next thing I'm going to throw into the middle or to the next line here is it's saying, okay, all of my audio is going to be feeding to record in what format. And I'm going to just immediately give it an MP3. I could change this to a WAV file or an AFFI. Those are huge, huge audio files. And depending on how much space you have on your computer, sure, go ahead and do that. But I'll repeat what I said at the beginning of the workshop, which is that these are shows that are going to air once. These are not meant to be archival for the Smithsonian or something. Don't overload your computer with both the thinking that it needs to do in order to record this and then process it and then potentially even edit it later with making it the highest quality audio file. MP3s, I find, are totally fine because truth be told, for both stations, that's the format that they actually want it in. So what you would be doing is compressing it anyway. So, so just create a regular MP3 file and we'll leave our Smithsonian level audio shows for, 4 years from now when we're still broadcasting from home and need to up our game. And then finally, what you're wanting to do is to tell it, where is my output device? How am I going to be able to hear what it's actually doing? And for the most part with a Mac, it's actually auto assigning all of this. So Mac people get to luck out a little bit here that it's already knows that I've got my headphones plugged into the computer. So if I unplug my headphones, see how it's switched over to internal speakers. So it would play through my speakers right now. So if I were to, and I'm not going to do this because it's going to create an audio loop here because of Zoom, but I'm going to plug my headphones back in. And once I start playing something, you'll see that it'll start recording and I'm going to hear it in my headphones here. It's really that simple. So I'm ready to start doing my show. So I'm going to come over here to this little red button. And again, this is all detailed in the 4 or 5 bullets underneath Audio Hijack here that I'm kind of walking people through. But you'll see that I'm going to hit play. Now it's recording the audio of the Spotify. And actually, I'm realizing, this is good, I'm doing this live here for you, that it's actually not recording my mic. The reason I'm realizing this, and this is, again, you're gonna have to troubleshoot it a little bit here, is that I'm recording it, it's live right now, but I'm not seeing any audio signal down here of my mic being recorded. So I'm gonna stop it. And this is a good way to do a little bit live troubleshooting here. So input device is what you're gonna want. See how it says capture audio from a mic or other input. So I actually wanna drag my little friend over here and I'm gonna put it in the line. So see how it's, you want it to attach to that MP3. So I'm saying I want to record both the system audio it's going to be hearing from my Spotify, iTunes, whatever, but also my external mic. So that's what I'm talking in right here. So in theory, check, check, there we go. Now it's recording my mic. And if I wanted to play, you know, that song again, I come back to the Spotify and there we go. So how would I do a show? I'd be like, all right, game on, here we go. Welcome, you're listening to WRUV FM Burlington, DJ Lou here, doing a test little show here. Here is my first song from the Resistance Revival Chorus, All You Fascists Bound to Lose. Let's go. And then I start playing the music. And, you know, you want to be a little finessey here. So you either want to shut up, which is your self-mute, turn yourself off. It's still live recording for the, again, the sake of Zoom here. All right, so let's say it's the end of the show. Great, great show. I hit the end or hit the record buttons, which is to have it stop. And now I'm ready to do something with this audio. So it's my first show. Oh man, I know I almost got it right, but I want to do a little like editing afterward. I want to find where this file is, or hey, I totally nailed it. It was live. It was a little messy. It's still fine to use. Other pro tip I'll tell you is that it also counts up for you. So you can see how long that show will have been in its entirety pretty easily right there. So if you have a 1 hour show, 2 hour shows, it just kind of keeps track for you right there. So you don't have to worry about that. Super easy to find your files in Audio Hijack. You hit this button right here for recordings. And here's a listing of all the different recordings I've done on Audio Hijack. It'll highlight the one that is the most recent, but you can also look at your date and timestamp there. So on a Mac, if I wanted to do something with this, I could use this little actions button here, and I could reveal in Finder, which would take me right to the exact file. I can add it to my iTunes if I wanted it over there to kind of keep it and preserve it, or convert it or mess with the metadata, which is also, that's an important piece because at least for WBTV LP, they do want the metadata of the show category to, or of the genre category, excuse me, to say show with a capital S. So that's just an important little asterisk for anybody that is in that station. So generally what I would do is I would actually push it to my iTunes so I could make that one edit for WBTV, but for the sake of RUV, they don't care. They just want an actual MP3. So I want to reveal it in the Finder here, and it's going to pop up to where this actual file is. Then what I could do here is I could just drag and drop it. I could put it onto my desktop. I could drag it into a GarageBand. Again, for a Mac, that's where I would do any of my finesse editing. If I like played a swear, or if I wanted to take out the whole first 10 minutes because I was just clicking around and it was all funky and I just started again, that's where I would do editing for that on a Mac. Once you're done with it, or if you just wanted, if you did it all great the first time, this is the actual file that you would upload to Dropbox for it being scheduled in either WBTV or again, WRUV. What I would do is say, you know, definitely label it here, change the naming so it's more easy to see that it's, you know, Get Fresh with DJ Lou or whatever. I like to put a timestamp so it's easier to identify as well. So there's basically 3 ways to do that, to do this recording thing that I was just talking about here. So the first is again, Audacity, which is exclusively a Mac thing. Audio Hijack, exclusively a Mac thing. There is Audacity, which you can actually do on either program. It's a little bit finicky on a Mac. It's way more friendly to a PC. And again, that basically, the nice thing about Audacity is that it acts as like your editing software. You can also record live into it. Like it's the whole kit and caboodle kind of. And then this Rocket Broadcaster, yes, it is the way that we would also eventually go live, but it also is a very stripped down basic version of what I just showed you on Audio Hijack. And I just want to, and I'll show you here on this guy's screen what I mean by that. So hang on a second here. So he's opening up the Audio Hijack, or sorry, he's opening up Rocket Broadcaster. And you see how he's got the 3, let me see if I can get him to close that little drop-down window. So there are 3 columns right here for audio levels. This is the same kind of idea where you're telling Rocket Broadcaster what you want it to be listening to in order to record. So he's like selected audio input number 1 is the mic, audio input number 2 would be, you know, basically whatever else is happening on the computer. And similarly, you would just say, it says start broadcast, but essentially it's the same thing as just recording essentially what's happening on your computer. It's not, you're not telling it to broadcast out into the world.
Okay.
So again, a little finessing needed there with the Rocket Broadcaster, but there's so many YouTube videos about like little Rocket Broadcaster questions that people have that I think people will probably find that pretty easy to navigate, or default and go back to Audacity as my my suggestion there. I highly recommend you just go ahead and record it as a MP3, label your stuff, make it as you know, easily replicatable as possible from week to week. So you're not spending half your time doing tech instead of spending most of it doing actual radio shows.
Mhm.
So the next thing, so there's two more things I wanted to show you guys. So I do like kind of like the next level of this. So there's kind of, this is the most stripped down. I'm only doing it for my computer, but then I've actually got all this extra audio gear at home. And so I kind of created more audio inputs that I could send into my computer. And there's basically a need to have some of this gear, but it's a good thing, again, fingers crossed that we're not doing this forever, but you know, if you've got the gear at home or you're willing to invest in a little bit of stuff, you can kind of up your game a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this mic that I have right here. So when I first started doing shows at home, I was doing exactly what I just taught you guys. Like I was using these onboard mics. I was using like my handheld like DJ mic, and I was like talking through my main mixer, and it was like low levels. It was like crinkly because like the chords are all like, you know, well loved. And I was like, this is just not a sustainable thing. And so this Yeti mic it's about 125 bucks, I think, online. There's always deals for these things. You know, I ordered it back in the beginning of the pandemic, so it's probably even cheaper now, but this is a rock solid mic because a couple different reasons. It sounds really good. You'll have it for pretty much ever, but it's also really, really sturdy. So it just sits on my desk, and it's not something that is easily busted. Like if it was to get knocked over or dropped or something like that, like this thing could take a beating. And it's highly recommended by the Media Factory, which is one of the things that it's one of the tools they use there. So, you know, if you want to invest a little bit, I think this is a good $125 investment. You're doing a show every week for God knows for how long, you know, and half of this is making sure your voice sounds good. So if you were to do an upgrade, this would be the first thing I'd recommend. And the cord that comes out of the bottom there it's nice and long, and it just runs into a USB ending, which plugs into everybody's computers pretty easily. The one thing I will say for Mac users is that the newer your Mac is, the less USB ports you have. So you have to be a little judicious with where you're spending your USB limited time, if you will. So I've got a committed USB port just for my mic. And then what I've done separate from that, and I actually had this well before COVID, because the mixer I have, the DJ mixer I have at home, is a really old Rain mixer. It's not digital. I had to basically figure out how to take my analog mixer and make it digital. And luckily these things exist. So this is a company called Folksrite. Like this, there we go. And it's basically a digital audio converter box. I got this at the, what is it? Guitar something out in Williston a couple years ago. You can buy one of these online at this point. This was like 50 bucks. And what this does here is at the front, you can see that there's inputs here. It's basically just two mains. And so it's a left, right, 1/4 inch plugs that go into this right here. And what it's doing is it's sending the analog signal in here. It's turning into a digital signal. It's got my monitor here where, which is basically headphones that I just have plugged into it. I can control it there. And then coming out of the back is real simple, real fancy. It's just a USB converter plug that comes to the end. So this is the second and only of my two USB inputs that I have that I'm able to then stick into my computer. And then this is where I get fancy and switch over to my other camera. So hang on with me here. And again, to do those shows, what I would do is listen to my headphones through, again, the front of this digital feed, because then I hear everything that's coming out, no matter what the channel is from that mixer. Now, I could do that all into Audacity, or I could push that all into the audio hijack, but I actually like the feel of live radio. So I use an additional program called mixer.com, which I had done a video about way back in April. And it is a pay for play. It costs me like 10 bucks a month, but it's basically, I've created an internet radio station here at home. So it allows me to go live on the internet instead of just being taped here at home. And so I'm going to share you guys that briefly one more time. So let me share my screen. So, so you should be seeing a screen that's basically has a start button and it's got 3 audio channels, and it's got a final column that's for visitors. So it's a kind of similar to what the Rocket Broadcaster looks like, kind of. But again, what this is going to allow me to do is go live to the internet right now based on what I'm feeding into my computer. So this is kind of how I treat myself as a, like it's like a real live radio show, because it is live to somebody. And I frankly can have people stream in if they wanted to really hear me do it live. And I do have some people every once in a while listen live, and I share out this, it gives you a unique URL, which you can kind of share out to say, hey, I'm live right now. Listen to mixer.com/DJ Lou is my kind of temporary internet radio station whenever I go live for my show. But it is as simple as hitting start. And then I would be live right now. So I'd be talking, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm just going to run over and give you an audio feed so you see what it looks like. So there's a couple things going on here. One is that you can hear through my mic here, you're hearing the monitor probably, and I can control the volume here of each of the channels if I wanted to. So say I wanted to turn the music way down so you're hearing only my voice. There's a little bit of finesse there, but it really is meant as just kind of the output broadcasting piece. It's not meant to have multiple channels for the mixer.com. That's why I have to have all these other things through the digital feed. So then I just kind of like let it roll. I like just have Mixer going on in the background. I do my show as I otherwise would have, again, with my multiple pieces of audio gear. I'm using my phone and the iPad. I'm just kind of doing a show as I would otherwise do it. When I'm done, I come over here and I hit stop. And then again, very similar to Audio Hijacked, etc. I would then go to my locally saved spot where the actual recordings are, which you would just go up to the recordings piece of the software, and it brings you right to where the files are, which is, I believe, right there. So again, give me another file that I would either drag into an audio program to edit, or that's the MP3 that I would send off to one of the stations. So that's a lot of me talking at y'all and hopefully showing you some of the magic, not so much magic, behind the scenes that I've figured out. I think those are the main pieces that I wanted to show you. So I'm going to stop there for now and see what questions you have.